The International Energy Agency says the year 2020 could be a turning point for global energy emissions if we're willing to make some changes. The IEA says we need a 13% drop in coal demand over the next 15 years, including a ban on the construction of the least efficient coal-fired power plants. The agency says we'd have to see a reduction in demand for oil after it's expected to peak in 2020. A successful formula would include a doubling in the use of nuclear energy and a rise in the use of renewables from 1% to 5%, and it's calling for a gradual phasing out of fossil fuel subsidies by 2030. The IEA says achieving our goals is still possible, but the risk of failure is great. The more time passes without a deal, the more high-carbon energy infrastructure is locked in. It comes just days after a group of academics and scientists called for a moratorium on oil sands and related development, partly over climate change concerns. When Stephen Harper was at the G7 summit last week, he agreed to a commitment to stop using fossil fuels entirely by the end of the century. Time for E-Squared. Tom Rand is the Senior Advisor of Mars Clean Tech and author of Waking the Frog. Kenneth Green, Senior Director for the Center of Natural Resources at the Fraser Institute. And Kenneth, I'm going to start with you and ask, when I was talking to one of the authors of that report suggesting a moratorium on new oil sands expansion, in other words, we're doing it now, but we won't expand any more into that resource. The point I made was, can you ask the very companies that need to innovate in order to reduce their carbon footprint to make less money at the same time? Is that asking too much of them? What's your take on the proposal?
Well, I think you have a good point there, which is if you halt the growth, you pretty much halt some new development and new technologies as well. But I think more than that, what this report calls for, this petition calls for, is essentially a low growth or slow growth future. And that's what Canadians and Albertans have to ask themselves if they're willing to accept as a trade-off for reducing greenhouse gas emissions in an accelerated time frame. And if they do accept that, then they have to answer the other questions of how do we pay for the social services we like, how do we pay for the infrastructure we need, how do we pay for our children's education, because you can't magically make new industries appear. Governments have promised that repeatedly and repeatedly failed. To just wave a magic wand and make a new tech industry appear or a new industry appear doesn't work. And so we have to ask the question, what are we willing to trade for these greenhouse gas emission reductions in such a near term, 2020, 5 years away?
Well, let's first start by asking whether we agree that that is the question, because I'm not sure that Tom Rand will agree. Do you agree with that?
Well, I think he's mischaracterized it to some extent, Ken, because when you talk about a moratorium on expansion, the same royalties will continue to flow to the Alberta government. They just won't double. Right?
That's right.
So that's what we're talking about.
Right, but Tom, the population is growing.
Well, the population of Alberta is not going to double between now and 2020. So
no, but if the population grows and the revenues are stagnant, you have a smaller pie for everyone.
I understand. And there are going to be all kinds of other industries that come into play. Look, the Canadians in poll after poll after poll demonstrate they overestimate the size of Alberta oil sands. It's 2% of our economy. 2%.
By some measures, it's up to 7–8%.
Well, there's knock-on jobs on too. Yeah. So clean tech already employs more people in the oil sands by some measures. So the point is, if one thinks, as a Canadian, that Canada should commit, like every other developed country, to reduce emissions by some decent amount by 2030 and 2050. If you think that's a reasonable proposition, some don't, I do, then you can't do it if you're going to double the oil sands production. The math doesn't work.
100%. I mean, I agree with you that, that if we're going to sign on to that very lofty goal, we got to start somewhere. But so I'm going to ask you, because you're actually an expert in all of this, how to finance clean tech, how to finance the new industries. How do you ask the very companies? Because while we're doing this, we're still going to use fossil fuels. We need them to be innovating in things like emissions reductions.
Of course.
How do they finance that?
You put them in a box and you force them to innovate. Look, I mean,
with a price on carbon.
A price on carbon is one way to do it. The other is to say you're only ever going to be able to extract so much out of the ground here, so figure out another way to deliver energy. Look, there's a new breed of entrepreneur and business people in Alberta who know how to figure this out. Green Gate Power, Blue Earth Renewables. These are major companies that have had some success in renewables. And if they're given an even playing field, they'll continue to expand. And I would also argue that there's a kind of a new Alberta today, right? They elected the NDP, I think, partly because the NDP was the only political party that was willing to have an adult conversation and talk about limits. Unlimited expansion of the oil sands is absolutely incompatible with Canada even trying to meet its international commitments. And that's tough. I'm not saying that's easy, but that's a starting point. And from there, we look to industry to help us solve these problems.
So, Ken, is it realistic then to say we're going to curtail it? Maybe it's not a moratorium, which would be sort of the nirvana goal, but maybe it's a dramatic slowdown in expansion. Would that satisfy you?
Well, I mean, these are all possibilities. The government can facilitate or hinder the development of the oil sands as it sees fit. And as Tom said, we've had a change in government, we've had a change in priorities, we'll see what happens. But let's go back to that IEA report that you mentioned, which said it calls for a doubling of nuclear power and an increase in renewables from 1 to 5% of the global total. Renewables are not going to do it. Everybody likes talking about wind and solar, but to do these goals, to make any of these goals, you're talking about a massive expansion of nuclear power. Now, some people are okay with that, some people think it's economic, some people don't. But let's be real about it.
I'm not sure that's true. I mean, I hate to have one expert that I quote, but he happens to be a pretty smart one, and that would be Ray Kurzweil. There are some predictions based on the exponential increase in the power of solar and the cost of solar that it really could be a majority producer of energy within, he would say, 20 years.
The IEA has under-predicted solar energy by huge factors every single time. The only group that's ever got the predictions right about solar over 4 or 5 years away is Greenpeace, Woolly Greenpeace. They're the only ones who've come close to hitting the right prediction for solar. But nevertheless, industry claims, for good reason, that they are innovative, they bring capital to bear, they're good entrepreneurs. There's problems to be solved that they can help us solve. Letting them continue to expand the playpen in the oil sands is not how we get them to solve the problem. Okay,
can I ask you both, because it is kind of a pretty important thing, and I'm sure we'll come back to it, but this goal, Ken, I'm going to start with you. We're not using fossil fuels by 2100. Discuss.
Well, to get back to futurism, I mean, making predictions about the year 2100 here in 2015.
No, it's not a prediction, it's a goal, it's a promise. The entire world is now signed up for this.
Even better, making promises for 2100 from 2015 is like making promises for 1900 from 1815. It's a completely absurd
That's easy math.
Promise to make.
But then I'd flip that on you, Ken. You're the one that keeps saying how impossible it is to make predictions about the year 2100. Why are you so confident solar can't step up to the game?
I'm not. In fact, if solar steps up to the game, as we've discussed many, many times, if we get all the subsidies out of the system and solar steps up to the game, that's great. Same for wind, and same for other renewables, and same for nuclear, and same for fossil fuels.
Sorry, guys, 2100 is not that far away, right? My child is still alive in 2100, so we're not talking about some kind of weird, crazy, distant goal.
We don't have a choice but to reach that goal. Look, this is going to start getting really scary, right? California isn't a massive drought. There's no option. So we can talk about how hard it is, and let's talk about how hard it is. There are deep questions. Ken's right about it being hard, but this is not an optional thing.
Tom, the California drought has not been attributed to climate change. In fact, it's been excluded from climate change as a cause. So that's a ridiculous example. The reality is 2100 you're right, Amanda, it's near in the sense that our children and grandchildren will be alive, but the rate of change has accelerated over time from century to century, and you can't predict what's going to happen by the year 2100. We may be using non-fossil fuels.
We can't predict how we do it.
Gas from methane hydrates. We can't predict.
Agree, but we predict that we're going to have to do it. And with that, I predict that we're out of time. E squared, thanks. Ken Green, Tom Rand, thanks to you both.